Well, hello there. My name is Ken Narita. Welcome to our webcast. I work here in the marketing department here at UMA. This is actually going to be our next installment of getting the most out of UMA Office. And hopefully, those of you who have attended the previous sessions of this webcast are finding them useful. What they are designed to be are quick, within 30 minutes. Let's do a deeper dive into some of our features so that you guys can get a better sense of what they are, how to implement them, and if you guys ever run into trouble with setting any one of those features up, we have our customer service team ready here 24/7 to be able to help you, walk through, finalization of setting up any of those features or whatnot. So, you know, we love to hear feedback from our customers. And during the session, there is a Q&A box that you can certainly submit any question that you may have. But in addition to that, like I just mentioned, would love to get your feedback as it relates to any areas of this webcast that you may would have liked to hear more about, so that we can actually guide how we develop and produce these going forward too. So with that said, let me move on to my next screen here. And actually, if you've attended any of these previous webcasts, this slide will look redundant to you, but I'm never going to stop saying thank you to you, our customer, for making us number one. And again, this past year, 7 years in a row. And so I'll leave it at that and not belabor the point, but truly appreciate you being our customer and hoping you are getting the value out of our service that we know we can deliver. So this particular webcast is going to focus on ring groups and multi-device ring. And as I go through a couple of those features, I'll be able to also touch on some of the other features that sort of interact or relate to it. The ring group, as well as multi-device, as well as a lot of our other features. Again, if you've been on these webcasts before, so many of our features are simple to use, but they're very powerful in their application. And so, at the end of the day, the intent of ring groups is to increase customer interaction, right? And it's able to do that through enabling different teams, different individuals with the ability to answer more calls. And as you answer more calls, you're going to hopefully be able to increase your customer satisfaction rates. And then by definition, hopefully also increase customer transactions. And we'll go through in just a few moments how we go about setting up that feature. But the other feature that we'll also touch on is the multi-device ring. And again, it is about increasing customer interaction. And with this particular feature, it's all about enabling some of your endpoints, whether that's your physical phone, your mobile phone, actually even an external number to ring. And it's a really useful feature, especially in the times that we're living when most of us are out and about. Sometimes we're not at our place of our business. Sometimes we're at our home. Sometimes we're in between those, two places, going from home to business and vice versa. And sometimes we just do not want to miss customer calls. And this is one way to also facilitate that. So before I actually get into the deeper dives of both of those features, just as a quick recap, right, in terms of some of the other key benefits that hopefully you guys are already seeing and have set up through some of the features. And the inbound call automation feature is essentially the virtual receptionist where, if you haven't set it up yet, the feature enables you to route and to message callers with pretty much anything you would want a caller to hear about, whether if it's open hours, whether if it's directions, whether if it's promotions, whether if it's, the new way to actually put in an order. Perhaps you might be a restaurant and you are only doing pickup right now. And, what is the process to actually, if I'm somebody that's coming to your place of business, to do so? And a lot of big businesses are basically instructing customers on what the pickup process is. Whether you go to the place of business and call a number, or you text a number and whatnot. And a lot of those features that big businesses are using to enable pickup, you as an Ooma customer can also enable that, right? So messaging through the mobile app is basically a feature where you can enable or let any customer know that you're ready in the parking lot, or off to the side, or whatever direction that you would actually want that particular customer to know about, to effectively pick up an order as quickly as possible and get on with their day. So a lot of great features there as well, that are sort of embedded within the virtual receptionist that can be applied, that then touch on a lot of our other features, like I just mentioned before, with the mobile app and the messaging capabilities. The ability to work from anywhere and to run your business from anywhere is also associated with some of the features that we're going to touch on today. But the mobile app is one way to be able to do so. The desktop app, if you're an Office Pro customer, also enables you with almost all the same functionality as a physical business phone. But if you're not near that physical business phone and you needed to use your business phone in a more productive way, on your computer versus a mobile app, the desktop app is a great way to be able to facilitate that. And then lastly, in terms of the setup options, and depending on what your setup is today, the setup can easily expand to fit the needs of today. And so again, if you have not installed the mobile app, that's one consideration. If you prefer to actually interact with customers over the desktop IP phone, I'm not sure if you knew this, but essentially an IP phone that you use in your place of business, you can literally take it home and plug it into your internet at home, and it'll work the same way. Where if you get a caller's dialing an extension, that extension, which is your phone, will work and ring in the same way. If you have a business with a number of employees and a lot of them like to extension dial as a way to interact, and John Doe is at home and he knows that your extension number is 101, all he has to do is hit 101 and he can essentially call you and interact with you by extension dialing. So it's a really neat thing in terms of the flexibility that the system offers to enable you guys to be more productive. So hopefully that gives you a quick reminder, a quick recap. And in addition, just as it relates to recapping, the key features of Ooma Office. And so this feature list does not include some of the newer features in Ooma Office Pro. And if you are interested in some of those features, and again, it's just $5 more per user per month. And so some of those features, like I just mentioned, are the desktop app, call recording, voicemail transcription, as well as others. But this feature list specifically relates to Ooma Office as well as Ooma Office Pro, just not those added features. And what's highlighted on this particular slide are the two features that we're going to focus in on, the ring groups as well as the multi-device ring. All right, so let me transition over to my browser, and so as an administrator, hopefully you're already logged in, And this is actually my account, my live account, in which I use for demo purposes. I actually prefer to actually do demos off of a live account. And the first thing as it relates to ring groups is that, by definition, what it typically means is that you have at least two or three more users, right, at the minimum, right? And so ring groups is a way for callers calling in to reach certain teams. And you could have a sales team, you could have a customer service team, you could have an accounting team. That's one way. But for other applications, in terms of how you can use ring groups, is that you could also, in the virtual receptionist, as you set it up, and again, perhaps I'll just use the restaurant example, where you wanted to be able to ensure that you're capturing all of the phone orders that you could possibly can. And especially during busy hours, whether if it's lunch or dinner hours, certainly for that kind of business, you can imagine, peak calling times, and how do you deal with all of those all those potential callers calling in. And so you could set up the virtual receptionist where the first option is, to place an order, press one. And by doing so, you could then create a ring group that rings multiple extensions so that you're able to reach that caller and interact with that caller, versus not setting up a ring group and essentially having that caller stay on hold and go through a cycle that can also be set up, obviously, through the virtual receptionist. But in this instance, setting up a ring group where you can place one to place an order. Essentially, what's happening is that caller is being cycled through a group of extensions, and whomever picks up that extension will then be able to take that person's order. And so what I mean by that is, and there's actually two ways that can actually happen. So again, within the office administrator area here, you'll see, the first area of extensions. And what you do is, within this area here, you can do a lot of things in terms of adding users, virtual fax, setting up the virtual receptionist as well. And you can set up multi-levels of your virtual receptionist. And so what that means, for example, is you can set it up where you have your initial menu options of different teams, but then you could perhaps say press one for a different language, or press two for a different location. And then when it goes into that sub-level menu, then you can present a different menu of options. But the purpose of this call is not to go through the virtual receptionist. So let's continue on with the ring groups. And so, as I just mentioned before, you can create a new ring group of being able to take orders, in this example of a restaurant. And so what you would want to do is actually also name the ring group. And for lack of me thinking of a better term right now in terms of calling this name group, I'm just going to call it placing orders, or place orders. And so why is it important to actually name it? And so the reason why it's important to name it is, number one, within the extensions area here, you as an administrator can know what it is and to be able to manage that ring group. But number two, if I am part of that ring group, when my phone rings, I'll be able to know, okay, gotcha. The incoming caller ID will say place orders, and then it will be followed by the number that is calling, and it's typically, obviously, an outside caller. But the most important piece of it to know is, okay, the ring group that I am a part of, that it is now ringing, is a caller that is wanting to place orders. And so by the same token, if you are part of another ring group that was, say, for a different industry, like I mentioned before, sales team, you would want to call the sales team, because then you, as a participant of that ring group, would know, okay, this potential person is looking to place an order. Or if it's customer service, then you would know that it's an existing customer. Or if it's, if you name your group, billing, you would know that the incoming callers are asking or wanting to know, have questions around billing, so on and so forth. And so let's assume that we're going to call this one place orders in this example. And now you have two options. You can do simultaneous ring, where again, the menu options that we create in here are trying to be as helpful as possible. And there's also question marks in which you can roll over for further information about any feature. Simultaneous ring is as it says. It will ring all the phones at once that are part of this group. And then sequential, phones ring in the order that you choose. And so what that means is, simultaneous, I think, is pretty straightforward. And what you would do for this ring group is then add the members. And you would go through the process of, okay, who on my team is going to actually be able to take those orders, and then add them in. And the other situation, though, is, okay, let's have a sequential ring. And so what that means is, okay, I want first, in this situation of somebody wanting to place an order, perhaps Jane is actually better in terms of, she's more experienced, she knows the menu better, versus John, who is a new employee and doesn't know the menu as well. And so, you know what? Let's have an incoming caller dial first Jane and then John, and then be able to do that. In terms of picking up the phone. And so that is the two options within this menu set, or the settings area, to treat a ring group in terms of how those calls are rung on each one of your extensions or your employees' numbers. And what the advanced settings tab here will do is, okay, well, ring duration on each extension. And so it defaults right now to 5 rings. And there's a reason for that that I'll get into in a second. But depending upon how quickly you want to, perhaps you're a team that is always readily available to take orders. What you could do is, okay, you know what? Let's set it to 10 seconds. Let's set it to 12 seconds, which is essentially 2 rings. And let's be very proactive to be able to answer one of the callers as immediately as possible. And so what that would do essentially is, okay, Jane, she didn't pick up in 2 rings. The caller experience will be such that it then starts to ring John, and then it starts to ring any other number that are part of that ring group. If no one answers at the end of that ring group, whether if it's simultaneous or sequential, there are a couple of options, right? And typically, what businesses do after hours is that they'll send it to voicemail, right? However, during business hours, you can transfer it to an extension. And so perhaps you did actually have, let's say, 5 members as part of that particular ring group. And so you can imagine that, okay, maybe roughly it took about 40 seconds for that to actually ring through. It's a long time for somebody to be on the phone, but an ideal situation, or a situation that I think most of us actually have run into, is that, okay, it will then actually go to maybe the front desk, and it'll go to the operator if you're a different kind of business. Or you can actually also send them back to the virtual receptionist as well. And so again, that's something that I've always experienced too. If I'm on hold and I'm not reaching somebody whom I'm wanting to reach, it will send me back to the virtual receptionist to actually hear the options. Again, perhaps instead of actually trying to ring customer service, I want to try somebody in sales just to actually get a hold of somebody, right? And that is one option to do so. But the system is flexible enough where, okay, you know what? Let's choose the virtual receptionist as one option. You can, again, choose another extension as one option, or you can also, decide to send it to voicemail. So, whoops, I actually think Forgot one additional thing there or feature. So, this isn't a pre-existing ring group that I actually set up. And so within your menu options, you can actually go back to that ring group and actually, instead of simultaneous, let it, change that ring group into becoming sequential. And then let's change some of these preferences as well. The numbers feature within the ring group setup is an interesting one, right? Because depending again on the kind of business that you are, what you could do is provide a phone number in which callers can directly reach that ring group. So instead of actually having to go through the virtual receptionist, what you could do is you could actually set up that particular ring group to be dialed from a number that you choose. And the way that you would do that is essentially you could actually go through selecting one of the numbers, or you could actually go to, whoops, I'm sorry. Let me actually just go through adding a ring group here. You click on add, and what you're going to be presented with are available phone numbers. And so this is particularly useful if, for example, okay, what is the advertised number that we typically use in all of our search listings, in all of our directories? And typically, it could be the business phone number. But again, if you're a kind of business that is typically, the default is sort of taking orders, if you are a restaurant, to use that example one more time, what you could do is provide that number as one of the primary numbers that are advertised, and that number will start to ring that ring group. And so again, it's not a feature that can only be accessed through the virtual receptionist, but pretty handy in that way. And then what you can also do is also change the extension number of that ring group. And so again, the idea is to be as flexible as possible with all of the different options that you as a business might need to have. And so the extension number then works in the same way of being able to then start ringing that ring group. All right, let me move on here. So the multi-device ring feature is really an interesting feature, right? Because again, especially in the times that we are living in right now, we want to stay available to anyone that's actually calling. And you as an administrator have the ability to first set up your user's ability to receive calls on multiple devices. And where you do that is within the settings area here. And so I'm clicking on my extension. And so where you would do that out of these menu options would be in the devices section. And so currently what's enabled for me is my mobile app, as well as my desktop app, as well as my IP phone. And so the reason why my particular account also has a base station, it's not that the base station is ringing. It's that when I set up the account, I actually also set up the account with the base station. So, but the devices that will be ringing are the mobile app, the desktop app, as well as the IP phone. And so, but if you have a new employee or an existing employee that not has yet downloaded the app, what you do need to do is go into their profile here and allow them to use that mobile app by clicking here. And then also enabling them to use the desktop app if you have Ooma Office Pro. So, so what's also interesting about this particular feature is that we also enable you to also dial or have a caller that's calling your number. In my situation, my number is 650-204-5160. To also ring an external device. which is a pretty neat feature. And so, what are the use cases that? Okay, well, wait a minute, Ken. I have the mobile app enabled. I have my desktop IP phone enabled, and I also have my app. Well, again, the idea with Ooma Office is we want to enable you with simplistic features that are powerful. And so this one is also interesting because in this present time that we are in, you could actually also insert another number. So let's say you actually had, for whatever reason, another home line that you're not using, or another phone line, or another mobile phone that you're using, and perhaps you like to keep two phones because you're that busy, and maybe it also helps you keep your life separated. The mobile app will also help you do that, by the way, because of how the functionality will work, where if somebody dials you and you're on your mobile app, and it's dialing your business number, what happens is when you pick up the phone, you'll know that it's a business number because it'll indicate that it is, a number calling the Ooma Office line, and you'll know that it's a business number, so you can reject the call. But at any rate, adding an external line is basically any other number that's out there. And so when somebody actually dials your business number, it will also not only ring this external number and also give you the option to, press a key to accept the call, but it will also ring all of these other devices as well. So that, in a nutshell, is the multi-device ring, and as an administrator, how to set it up. As a user, and I actually did see a question pop through about as a user, how do you log in? In order to log in to not only the mobile app and the desktop app at a user level or an employee level, you basically just use your same credentials as well. So if you were an end user that was actually that has actually used the web portal piece of it, you could actually also then log in to your account with the same credentials that you would use to access your end user account on the browser as well. So that was one question that I saw coming through. And the next question that I saw come through was in relation to the desktop app and its ability to ring and be part of the ring groups. And the answer there is absolutely yes as well. One other question that I just saw come through too was calls to a ring group go to voicemail instead of the next caller. Oh, thank you for actually mentioning that. And let me actually just log back out. And actually, that was the additional feature that I believe I was remiss in actually mentioning. And so Ken, I set up a ring group. I set up a sequential ring group, but the issue is that it actually keeps on going to voicemail. What happens? Or how can I ensure that it actually goes to the next user? And so this is why the setting up of the ring group is important, where the advanced piece of it here, ring duration on each extension. And so what you need to identify is that if this ring group is set up where it will move on to the next caller in 5 rings, but the actual end user has a different setup where send it to voicemail after 2 rings, what we need to do is make sure that the end user is actually set up not so quickly. And so the end user in this situation perhaps has to set up their voicemail to 38 seconds, because then by default for the ring group, if we set it to 3 rings, it will then move on to the next number that is part of the ring group. Hopefully I explained that in a coherent way. At the end of the day, yeah, you want to just make sure that in a sequential ring group situation, that the number of rings is less than the number of rings on a end user's default ring duration before it is sent to voicemail. So, all right. So we are at the tip of the 30-minute hour, a half hour mark here. And I did actually go through some of those questions that I did see come through. Again, hopefully these sessions are just enough to give you a slightly deeper dive into some of the great features that we have here. And again, here is the 24/7 number to call should you have any questions about setting up or just needing help with setting up any of the features. And don't also forget about the support site, support.ooma.com as well. Well, so again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a customer. We'll catch you next time. The webcast invite for the next instance of this webcast series will be going out soon, and I hope to see you then. So with that said, make it a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.